Welcome back to another edition of Hanging with the Howards. I'm Brian.
And I'm Tish.
And once again, we want to thank you for your loyal support of watching our podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find us. I highly recommend
That list is getting longer and
it.
longer.
It sure is. It's like the price is right around here.
It is. It is. Well, today we're going to be talking about our trip to the Dominican Republic. And the title of this episode is,
How did you lose my luggage?
yeah, that was a disaster. But we're going to tell you how it was supposed to go first. And then we'll tell you how it ended up happening.
All right, everybody ready? Story time. Clear eyes, full hearts. Can't lose. All minds are clear. All right, all right, all right. Anyways, so the plan was for me to fly to Florida to celebrate Christmas with my parents, while Tish celebrates Christmas with her family in Arkansas. And then she was to fly from Little Rock, Arkansas to Tampa, Florida, where that's where I would be. And then we would fly to the Dominican Republic for a week and enjoy life as anybody would be
Worry
happily
free.
ever after in the Dominican Republic. Now, that just didn't go according to plan, now, did it? Of course not, right?
No.
So I'm going to say that this was probably my worst ever experience traveling. The year before, I experienced no problems flying to the Dominican Republic. It was certainly a breath of fresh air, and an opportunity for me not just to catch my breath, but to recover from a divorce. So I wanted to have this opportunity to bring Tish along for an opportunity for us to uh, celebrate the New Year
Mhm.
in the Dominican Republic. And little did she know that I had already reached out to her daughters
Oh, yeah.
to do a surprise proposal, so to speak. So yeah, that's how it started. Um, so this was a couple years ago. As we all know, traveling uh, around the holidays is already stressful as it is. But I arrived at the Monroe Airport early for my early flight, which would be to Dallas, and then connecting over in Dallas to Tampa, Florida. The problem was is, and I normally like to take that first flight out, right? I love it, but the plane was broken. Now, how do you have a plane that's broken for the first flight? Like, I can understand flights like 4, 5, and 6, but for the first flight, like, come on. And this was during a time where the weather was already cold.
Mhm.
You're talking in the, you know, for some places it was in the negatives.
Yeah.
In Louisiana, for this particular day, it was like 14 degrees. Um, so my flight was delayed. Um, Initially, they said it would be an hour, and I'm looking at like my layover and going, well, it, I'm gonna be late, and I'm gonna miss that flight. And then the layover, and then the flight itself got changed from an hour delay to about a 4 hour delay. And if you've ever been in the Monroe Airport, there's no food places, nothing at all. And so I went to the ticket counter and said, "Hey, can you book me on another flight?" Well, they booked me on another flight for later in the day. So I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I tracked everything. My bags are already headed towards Dallas. So I'm figuring, well, it'll go from Dallas to Tampa. I'll be able to pick them up. Now, I made the mistake in my overnight bag of putting my glasses in there. So I didn't have my glasses. All I had was my contacts. And so I felt okay.
Mhm.
Like when I went to bed that night, I was still nervous. Everything. And meanwhile, like the flight that I was supposed to be on later that day got delayed even more. So I just called and ended up getting booked on a flight for the very next day.
Mhm. Now keep in mind this winter, it was winter storms like everywhere. So this, for those of you who may have forgotten, they were canceling flights left and right. This was the winter of 22, right?
Yeah, it would
Yes.
have to be 22. Yes.
Yeah. So for those of you who remember, everything was like chaotic. Like on all the airports, flights were being canceled. It was just like this huge winter storm that just came through. I guess around Christmas time, it was like that whole like a week or two of just this bad winter storm
Right.
that came through.
Right, and I know I wasn't like the only one
Hmm.
affected by this, so and it was very difficult. But so the very next day, I get to the airport. Again, first flight out, a little bit of a delay, not as long of a delay. We get on the airplane. I'm looking at my watch. I'm thinking, okay, once we arrive in Dallas, I gotta get to the terminal. My flight's gonna leave, only to find out my flight in Dallas had been delayed as well. So that kind of worked out a little bit. And so I had a really long day. And so when I finally arrived in Tampa, expecting to get my bag's nowhere to be found. Not one spot is like I can't find it. So I go to the ticket counter and explain the bag is lost. I have to fill out a form. They're gonna try and find it, whatever. But like I know I'm not the only one because there's like hundreds of bags laying around at this point. So I get an Uber and go to my parents' house. Um, Struggle to get in, and at this point I've literally traveled all day long. This has
Hmm.
probably been about a 16-hour day altogether for me of just traveling and waiting and being a little bit frustrated. And so I get up the next day and like they give you a number to call, right?
Hmm.
Can't get through. And I get online and I look at the airline, on Twitter, and people are just frustrated. They can't find their bags. Like this airline's lost every bag imaginable at this point. And I noticed like some people had tweeted at the airline, and the people from the airline were tweeting back. So I sent them a direct message, and they said, "Well, we'll look for your bag." The thing was, is I could tell you where my bag was.
Hmm.
It was in Dallas. It was still in Dallas. I'm not exactly sure how my bag is still in Dallas at this point. So I went through Christmas Day without my bag, without my
Hmm.
glasses. I'm having to go get toiletries. Having to go get like the day after Christmas. I had to go
Hmm.
get a whole new wardrobe
Yeah.
essentially and a new luggage, and so it was a little chaotic
Yeah.
to say the least. And,
Yeah.
and and there was times throughout this particular process where I felt like my bag is lost. There ain't
Mhm.
no way I'm getting this bag. Meanwhile, on CNN, not only are people losing their bags, but now flights are canceled all across the country.
Mhm.
People can't get from where they are to where they need to be, or they can't get home, or
Yeah,
whatever.
they have Christmas. Their Christmas is ruined because they had their Christmas gifts in their luggage, and all the luggage is nowhere to be found. It was just, it was crazy.
It really was. So at this particular time, I'm starting to look at flights for the Dominican Republic. And hey,
Hmm.
is this flight gonna happen? Flight is still on schedule. Meanwhile, I'm still without my bag, but I can tell you where my bag is. It's
Hmm.
still in Dallas, and apparently they had some conveyor belt issues and everything. And so
Hmm.
I'm still tweeting, like
Hmm.
almost all the time. Hey, I know where my bag is, and this is where the location is. And they were the airline was very good,
Hmm.
with me. and I stressed, "Hey, I'm about to go to the Dominican Republic, so I really need this bag." The good news was it was a good news, bad news, right? The good
Mhm.
news was I had the ring that I was looking for the proposal, right, in my carry-on bag. So I had that with me, but I didn't have my glasses. So I was
Yeah.
still struggling.
Yeah. And meanwhile, he's keeping me, abreast of all of this stuff, like, oh my gosh, everything is lost. What am I gonna do? I'm so frustrated. And here I am saying we're gonna hold out. You're gonna get your bags before we go. It's gonna be a Christmas miracle. It's gonna happen. You will get your bags before we leave. And so I tried to stay as positive as I could because he
100%.
was like super frustrated, like constantly on the phone, texting, calling, doing whatever he could because he could like he said, he could see where his bags were. Like they're right here. Why can't they make it from point A to point B? So I knew the frustration, and so I was just like, okay, it's gonna happen. You're gonna get it. Just stay patient. We're gonna hold out for this Christmas miracle. Meanwhile, my flight is getting ready to come up
Yeah.
to come to Tampa. So
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
so I'm sitting there and I'm watching like the tracker. All of a sudden, Southwest Air, and I'll throw it out there. All of a sudden, Southwest Air starts canceling flights
Mhm.
right and left. Well, Tish's flight from Little Rock to Dallas to Tampa is through Southwest at this point, and like I'm following on the news. I'm trying to hold out hope. I'm like, all right, early in the day, it hasn't been
Yeah,
canceled,
everything
right?
is good.
And now Tish goes to Walmart and I get online. My dad says something to the effect of, "Uh-oh, they just canceled a lot more flights from Southwest." And I get online
Yeah.
and her flight from Little Rock is now
Yeah.
canceled.
I'm in line at Walmart and I get like this, what, call or text or something. It was just like, your flight has been canceled. And my stomach just dropped. I was like, oh my gosh. Because I'm not a big traveler like he is. He travels a lot more than I do. So I don't really travel a whole lot, especially like on my own. I travel, like I said, we travel in groups, me and my family. So I don't do a whole lot of traveling on my own. So when he told me that, I was just like, oh no, I'm screwed. 'Cause I mean, I was just like in shock. But he kicked it on in. He came
Well,
on through for me.
so I had two options, right?
Hmm.
Option A is I find a way to get you from where you are to where you need to be, or option B is you don't go. Well, I'm probably gonna go. All right, there's a
You
good
probably wish
chance.
you would have went without me, but anyway,
You
too
know,
late.
um. So I scrambled. I
You
scrambled like
did.
I couldn't
You
believe,
did.
and within like 15 minutes, I booked her a flight to go from Little Rock to Charlotte, which is where we would be connecting at to go to the Dominican. So fortunately, by the grace of God, that flight did not get canceled,
Right.
and she was able to travel to Charlotte. Meanwhile, my parents drive me to the hotel that we are actually supposed to meet at um, in Tampa, and all the while there was a Christmas miracle going on.
Mhm.
My bag somehow, some way ended up on a flight from Dallas to Phoenix. Makes no sense. Air travel is like crazy that it doesn't make sense, by the way. Goes to Phoenix, gets loaded on a plane, and then flies to Tampa. Again, makes no sense because you go west just to go east. Makes no sense. But I'm tracking my bag the entire time. I'm in the car with my parents going to Tampa so that they can drop me off at the hotel. And I'm like, man, my bag potentially could be at the airport, in the next hour. So I check in at the airport. They have a hotel shuttle. I shuttled over there. waited for the flight to land. It landed, and the bags are on the carousel, and it's going around, and lo and behold, guess what?
There it is.
My bag has arrived. And not only that, though, I'm blessed that the bag arrived. I'm one of the few and fortunate people,
Mhm.
so I'm certainly blessed. But my suitcase has four wheels, and two of them are gone. All right, two of them go, and I have a hole in my suitcase at this point. So I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going to be going to the Dominican with an extra bag now that I didn't really intend to pay for, and I got this bum suitcase all of a sudden. But so it was a little bit of a nerve wracking and everything. So I shuttled back to the airport, or shuttled back to the hotel at this point. Tish is finally arriving late into Charlotte and getting into her hotel and everything. And so it was good to just for you to be in Charlotte at that
Right.
point.
Right. I was so nervous, y'all. I mean, like my face was breaking out. It was bad. I mean, like I made it to the hotel late, like you said, and I was so nervous because of all the stuff going on, like in the airports and everything. That, of course, there was a free shuttle to the airport from the hotel, so I couldn't even sleep. They started shuttling like at I think 4 o'clock that morning. I don't think my flight was until like probably 9. I don't even know what time it was. 10. I don't know. I was like, put me on the first shuttle to the airport. I just want to get there, get me to the airport. So like I didn't even sleep. I mean, it was nerve wracking. It was so bad. But I was just like, okay, at least I'm in Charlotte, it's gonna be okay. I think we communicated, all through the night. Neither one of us slept because, he had to get from Tampa to Charlotte. I was already there. So now I'm waiting on him, at this point, because I'm already in Charlotte. And so like it's 4 o'clock. I'm like, just put me on the first shuttle to the airport. And then I get there. And then I think the guy, we had gotten our um everything inclusive.
Right, right. So that was the other issue. So
Yeah.
like I got to the Tampa airport early. I really didn't sleep all that well because obviously I was worried about you in Charlotte and me getting up early and then getting to the airport and you're standing outside of a line. I talked to one lady who was from like North Dakota and they couldn't get a flight out to save their life. Not at all. Like they were on a flight and had to come back to the terminal. It was crazy. And so, international flights go this way, domestics go this way. And so like I literally watched a young lady I think she was from Haiti and she had her passport but like she wasn't COVID tested.
Mhm.
So she wasn't allowed to get on the plane. So I saw that, and then obviously I get in to check in, and the guy, I'm checking in my two bags of luggage, and he's like, "Okay, going to the Dominican Republic." He's like going through the whole process with my passport, and then he goes, "Okay, well, I see you have another carrier with you," and I said, "Yeah, well, she's actually in Charlotte. She had some flight issues," and he was like, "Well, because it's all inclusive, he wasn't about to let this happen." So I'm scrambling. He gave me a code essentially and
Mhm.
was like, "Hey, tell her to use this particular code when she goes to check in." And I was like, "Okay." But I was nervous, so I'm texting you
Mhm.
on it, and I'm
Mhm.
I'm like praying. I'm like, come on. So I finally get through security, and I'm sitting down, and I'm like, I just need this plane to go off on schedule.
Mhm.
Would that be possible? I've already had a rough, week essentially
Mhm.
being in Florida, and then and I love my parents. They weren't the issue. The issue was is not having your bags, and now I got two bags, and going to the Dominican. So, fortunately, we did depart on time, and
Mhm.
then I didn't even tell you I landed. I just went and found you, and it, it,
Yes.
it was it was a blessing just to be in one place at the
It
same time.
was. It took a lot, and I mean a lot for us to get back to each other.
Absolutely. So
And so,
let me ask this. So what is going through your mind, obviously, like with that whole travel situation? Because you're on one end of the spectrum, I'm on another end.
mhm.
How nervous and nerve wracking were you on that?
I was super nervous. Like I said, I was breaking out. I didn't know what to do because if you wouldn't have booked me to Charlotte, I was just like lost. I didn't know what to do. So I was just praying that I just made it there. I was praying I made it to the airport fine. And all I can say, y'all, is thank God for TSA pre-check. That will change your life. I'm telling you.
Shout out.
I got to the airport that morning at like probably 4:30 ish or so. It was line. It seemed like a mile long through the regular line, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm never gonna get through this line." And so I went to the counter. I was so nervous because, like you said, he had given me that code, and I was like, "Please work," because I didn't have any paperwork. I didn't have anything. I just had this code. And so, I told him the situation, and luckily, God was really nice, and he was able to find me on there. And I looked at the line, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And so I didn't know where to go, and so luckily, this person was like, "Oh, the TSA pre-check is that way." So it was the opposite way of that long line, and there was zero wait in the TSA pre-check. So I'm gonna tell you now, it'll change your life. 'Cause it really did make a big difference for me that morning. Because I was already just nervous, almost to the point of just, like, being sick. I was so nervous. So, got through the, TSA pre-check, no problem, and then I just had to sit there and wait. Cause like you said, he didn't even tell me that he landed or anything. I was just sitting there like, and then it's like in the movies, where you see each other and then you see this, you hear the music, it's just like, "Ah," you know. We didn't do that, but we both felt it. It was just like, finally, we could both like breathe. It's like we were holding our breath for hours, waiting to get back to that same spot to where we could get on the plane to go to the Dominican. So it was a bad time, a
Yeah.
rough time for me.
So 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 then we get on the plane. Now we're headed to the Dominican. You land in the Dominican, and you obviously got to go through customs, and we got shuttled to our resort, and this was a different resort than the one I had used like the year before. And this resort was really nice. And I had looked at a I guess a villa is what they call it or whatever, but it had a private pool, and it looked really nice, obviously. And so we get to the resort, we're finally able to check in, and they shuttle us to our resort on a golf cart. And the bellhop takes us literally across this like pond area, right, and straight ahead to our villa, which is it's 2 stories, right? You walk in and the stairs are straight ahead, but then if you turn to the right, you got the living room area. And I mean, it was amazing. I
Yes.
mean, just simply amazing. I think it blew you
Oh
away.
yeah. It was one of those worth the wait moments. I'm telling you.
100% on that,
Oh
100%.
yeah.
So we go to dinner that first night, and everything is good. And the next day we go to breakfast, and we run into our concierge, and he says, "Oh, hey, we're having a celebration tomorrow. What are you guys doing tomorrow morning?"
Mhm.
And we say, "Oh man, like we just here to relax." And he goes, "Well, why don't you come by? We'll take you to breakfast, and then we'll have we'll show you a celebration." I was like, "All right, cool." Like I had never been a part of anything like this.
Mhm.
So like we get up the next morning, and we go to the concierge. They take us to another end of the resort,
Mhm.
another like partnership of the resort. And we met a guy, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're being shuttled back to our own resort for breakfast. Now, isn't this supposed to be celebratory?
Yeah. Supposed to be like something special. We could have done that
Absolutely.
like on our own, but anyway.
100%. But then after breakfast, we go back to the other resort, and now we are being shuttled literally all around these
Mhm.
resorts and on golf carts, and essentially it's a timeshare. So we wasted 4 hours of our entire vacation on a timeshare,
Yeah.
which is hilarious,
It was
by the way.
all a sales pitch.
All the
That's
sales
all it
pitch,
was.
and literally the guy looked at me and was like, "Hey, for what was that like? $5,000, $8,000,
Mhm.
right? You could get this." And I was like, "Look, I'm about to change jobs.
Yeah. It's
You
like
know,
we're
I ain't,
moving. We don't
I,
have
I don't got that money, man."
anything.
So I think that like in the Dominican, and not to take anything away from them, they like all of a sudden think that we were rich, and we
Mhm.
weren't. Who
Mhm.
we were far from it.
Mhm.
So
They did give us mimosas though. What else
uh,
mimosas?
yeah, yeah. Oh
I don't
man, I'm
know.
glad you remembered that, man. Boy, those were tasty.
They were actually pretty good.
Yeah, they were
That was the
pretty
best
tasty.
part of
Wait,
the
wait.
sales pitch.
You
But anyway,
actually drank some
a little
mimosas.
bit. I
All
didn't drink the
right.
whole thing. Just a sip.
Look at you there.
Hey,
Lightweight.
we're on vacation. You know, a little champagne, mimosa.
So so that was probably the only hiccup, obviously, at that particular resort. Well, there were other hiccups like putting stuff in the safe and then not remembering the code, right? Like who does that, right? So we didn't remember the code, and that was like another 2 hour adventure that we had. Um, but it was still worth the
It
wait,
was fun. We
on
had a
it.
good time.
So now fast forwarding to New Year's Eve, and we had made reservations at a restaurant, and we got dressed up, and I had mentioned earlier in this particular podcast about talking with the girls about this one particular proposal, and I'm about as nervous can be. All right, and I had got this ring, and essentially it's a promise ring,
Mhm.
right? But at the same time, I wanted to be respectful, and I asked the girls on Messenger, "Hey, would it, I want to be able to give a promise ring to your mother. Would that be okay?" And they both said yes, and I was like, "Fantastic."
It
And
was sweet.
so, after we ate dinner, we went walking, and there was this gazebo, right? And so we walked into the gazebo. It's well lit with lights, and I can't really remember much after walking into the gazebo, to be honest with
It seems like right when we got in the gazebo, it came like this downpour. It was raining
you. Absolutely.
so hard. It was like this downpour. But then he gave me the promise ring, and then it stopped raining. Just all of a sudden, it just kind of got calm. It was just the most, I don't know how to describe it. It was just a weird, it felt good, but it was just like it rained, rain, rain. And then he gave me the ring, and then it just stopped like immediately. So that was kind of, I don't know, maybe a sign of something. I don't know.
I have no idea,
But it
to be
was so
honest.
romantic, though. It was really sweet. It was really sweet.
So obviously, a promise ring signified because I was getting ready to move, and she was staying behind. And one of the things that always stuck out was as I was preparing to depart from Grambling, you had said numerous times, "I will follow you anywhere." And I had had an opportunity to get a job at Washington State in Pullman, Washington, and I don't think that you would have gone and followed me
Yeah,
there,
probably
obviously.
except for there. Yeah.
Yeah. But in this particular case, you were excited, and
Hmm.
so that really set the mood for the rest of the night. And then, I just felt like we had a really good
Yeah.
time in the
It was
Dominican.
it was very nice.
I think you shopped until you dropped is really what it
No,
was.
I bargain shops. It's a difference. Now you have to bargain shop. You just can't go buy the first thing you see because you know they all gonna sell the same stuff. So you gotta go from one place to the other, and then sometimes I forget how much this costs over here. Then I had to go back to see how much it
My
was.
legs were tired. Okay,
But I
my
got
legs
some
were
good
tired.
deals now. You can't just go buy the first thing you see. You gotta hop around, shop around, till you get the best deal. That's how I roll.
Nah, and you did have an experience of sorts, I guess, on the beach. Can you describe what those that experience was?
You bring back such bad memories.
To me, I don't feel like it was bad, but for you, I know that was bad.
We are walking along the beach, and people always trying to sell things, bracelets and all this kind of stuff. People are constantly walking around. So we're walking, having a good time, and here comes this man with this little monkey, about this big, a
That's
little
about
a
right.
little monkey,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that was about accurate.
So he's getting closer and closer to us. And so I'm like, no, kind of like get away. Next thing I know, I literally have a monkey on my back.
You're carrying a monkey on your
I
back.
had a monkey.
Is it
The
me?
monkey jumped.
Is this am I on your back?
No,
Oh, okay.
a literal monkey.
Monkey on your back.
And I don't like. Okay, anyway, the monkey jumped on my back, and I lost it. I lost it. And I don't curse or anything like that, but I came very, very close that day. I might have let some. I don't think I let anything
No,
slip.
no, you didn't, but you came close.
But he jumped, and I had braids too, and like he jumped, and I could feel him like pull it on. Oh, I could feel him pull it on my braids. I was so mad at that man. I don't even know what I said, but I know I said something. It was horrible. And from then on, I felt like, oh my gosh, there was a monkey on my back. I can't believe you made me tell that story.
It's a great
It
story.
brings back
It is an
such
absolute great story.
horrible memories of that.
But you're getting tickled after it,
So
so
I can say that I have had a monkey on my back
you have you
for
can.
real.
Um, obviously we had a great time in the Dominican, and then it was time to go home,
Hmm.
right? So now we got a flight from the Dominican to Miami and everything. So we're flying. We get in there. We go through customs in the Dominican. Obviously, you had to look for some white Hennessy for a family
Yes, had to look for a
relative,
little white Hennessy.
and then
Hmm.
get on the plane.
Hmm.
And now we're flying back to the States. Now we gotta go to Miami, and we gotta go through customs in Miami, right? So we go through customs, and now we gotta go collect our bag so that we can go to our connecting flight, which is Miami to Tampa. All right. And so as we are standing there at the carousel, all right,
Hmm.
literally at the carousel, okay, and we're waiting for our bags. And I mean, we are waiting, like
Yeah,
just
taking
watching the
forever.
carousel go around with other people's bags or whatever. I like walked around twice, right?
Hmm.
Describe who you saw, because I give all credit to Tish on this one.
Well, I'm sitting there and I see like this lady, and I see all of this like name brand. I think it's like Louis Vuitton or something. Like this huge, luggage, like all this name brand luggage. And then I see this guy, and I think he had on like a cap and some shades or something, maybe. And so Brian walks up, and I was like, "Hey, that guy looks like Robin Thicke." And he's like, "Robin Thicke." And so he looked. Now, then you go a little bit closer,
I went a little closer,
and
yeah.
he was like, "It is Robin Thicke." So,
That's right. Everybody get up. Dance time, baby.
oh my.
Little Robin Thicke. I
Yeah.
know you want it. Hey,
So
hey.
it was Robin Thicke, and I guess his friend and maybe her mom. It was like maybe two or three women with them. But yes, we saw Robin Thicke, and then we get a couple of pictures. Just kind
I,
of
I
we
s-
had to. We didn't go up to him, but we kind of got a couple of pictures from a distance.
yeah, I snuck in a couple pictures and everything, but that was only the beginning in the Miami journey.
Yes.
Like that was, I think, like we arrived in Miami at like 7 o'clock or whatever, right? And um, so then, or it might have been 6 o'clock, but then we got to go to our connecting flight. But in Miami, they don't make it any easier for you to get from where you are to where you need to go. You gotta go drop off your bags. Now it's gotta go to the carousel to be on the plane that you're gonna be on. But that was the first thing. But then now you got to go through TSA again. By the way,
Again,
so you've
twice,
gone
yeah.
through customs on one side. Now you got to go through TSA, and so we go to this one, and there is only one line open at TSA. One line, and I think I was probably the most frustrated person ever. Well, I wouldn't say I was the most because there was plenty of people
He was
behind
the
me.
most vocal, the
Absolutely.
most vocal,
Absolutely.
frustrated person.
Like, how do you want, like, if you're gonna open a TSA line, right? How you only got one person working? It makes no sense at all. But we finally get through, and now we're hungry. So we went and ate at what, a TGI Fridays?
Yeah,
Yeah, TGI Fridays, and I don't have any catch slogans for them.
I don't even know what it is.
I don't. If you know the catch slogan, please message us. Make a comment. I don't know TGI Fridays. I really don't. I
I don't
mean, the
either.
food was good though.
It
I
was good.
mean, that's because we were hungry. But so now we're waiting to get on our plane to go to Tampa. We are now getting on this plane. It is what? What would you say it was? 11 o'clock at night.
Probably, yeah.
11 o'clock at night. We get on the plane. Now we're not seated together. We're in
Hmm.
different seats. I was ahead. Tish was behind me, and we were on the plane for a good 3 hours
Hmm.
before we even
Just
departed.
sitting there. Yeah.
Like they had a crew that was supposed to fly us, and that crew, like I guess they were over their hours,
Hmm.
and so they had to bring in another crew who then canceled another flight. By the way, it was crazy as heck, but we didn't get to Tampa until like 4 a.m.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you do the math, like we were literally on this plane for like 3 hours, and we didn't get to Tampa until 4 a.m. So now we're sitting there waiting for our bags at the carousel. And I literally can tell you this: there are plenty of bags sitting around that airport that were unclaimed bags
Hmm. It
outside
was
the
a
gates.
lot.
There was just
It was a
there was
lot.
a lot. So we get our bags, and now we are headed. I call the shuttle. It's the same hotel I stayed in, on the way to the Dominican. So we call the shuttle. The guy comes and picks us up. We get to the hotel room, and I mean, it was a blur. I mean, it was an absolute blur. Like, I think we may have had like 2 hours of sleep, 2 or 3 hours at most of sleep, and then had to get up and fly from Tampa to Dallas, and then
Hmm.
Dallas for you to Little
To Little
Rock,
Rock.
and for me to Monroe. And I was fortunate because, like, when I was in Dallas, getting ready to fly to Monroe, like I actually knew some people from Grambling. Like, ran into a couple football players and the softball coach. Shout out to Nakia Hall, former Alabama A&M softball coach and current Grambling softball coach. So she was on that particular flight, and fortunately, they didn't lose my bag this time. So I
Yeah.
was I was a little happy about that. But um, so yeah, that was a very chaotic trip
It
all the way
was.
around,
It
and
was.
I'm scared. Honestly, this is probably the first time I've ever said this, but I'm scared to fly overseas ever again. Heck, I might be scared to fly in the country, to be honest with you. Uh,
Especially during the holidays. I think that didn't help, but the winter storm definitely just made it worse. But I will say this now, Southwest, they did um, compensate, for the cancellations and stuff. So, even though it was very chaotic, I do want to, kind of clarify that they did make me whole. They compensated me for flight, hotel, meals, even gave me some points, and I know when we were in the Dominican, they had talked about that that's what they were going to do, just trying to compensate, the passengers. So they did a good job with that. It was very chaotic going through it, but in the end, they came up and they made up for it. For me, I know for a lot of people that lost their luggage for Christmas and stuff, it didn't really help a lot, but for me, they did a good job in compensating me for all of the changes.
yeah, and I mean, for the airline that I took, I mean, they compensated me for as much as they could, which I certainly appreciated.
Mhm.
But I wish it would have been more, obviously. But they did a good job and they got the checkout real quick, which was also great. But I'm thankful, because it could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
Um, for both of us,
Mhm.
and so for us, it was a blessing to get to the Dominican, get back, and obviously, I would love to go back again. I always give recommendations on the two places I've been to in the Dominican. I think the first place that I went by myself, I probably had more fun. I'm not saying it because well, you went with me the second time. I think like there was just more activities,
Mhm.
to do, and more places to go. Like the casino was better,
Mhm.
but overall, I couldn't have asked for a better partner to go on this trip with, and I wasn't gonna go at all if you weren't gonna be able to make it. So, I
Mhm.
am appreciative of that.
Yeah. We had a good time. It was a little chaotic, but it was worth it.
Ab-
Definitely worth it.
Absolutely. So, but like everything else in our relationship, it is worth the wait, and
It is.
we hope that you enjoy this particular podcast. And like I said, if you have travel issues, post a comment, let us know how it went.
Mhm.
I'm sure we would love to hear your particular story and how you survived, or if you didn't particularly survive or you lost luggage,
Mhm.
share that particular story as well.
So I guess that's all for now. Another one of our adventures.
Absolutely. And we hope that you tune in again soon as we will be sharing more and more of our journey and
Yes.
probably taking more of your questions
Hmm.
and comments and your feedback
Yeah.
in these upcoming podcasts. And like everything else in our relationship, it is
Worth
worth
the
the
wait.
wait.
See you next time.
Bye bye.